from my perspective, that's really sad that they don't call themselves a social worker, because they should be.
But we're setting it up that they don't want to be social workers, because I'm starting to think, is that what the profession is going towards, where we're, you know, standardizing it to a minimum standard, that we're telling students that's not good enough, and that's not how you want to practice. So then we're saying, well, but you have to fudge the exam and be this way, even though that's not your personal belief system to be that way, or your professional belief system. And not only that, but all your information is going to be stored in the States, which we're highly critical of with our clients and their information. So to me, I'm starting to think, well, maybe I don't want to be a social worker. Right? I mean, I'm at the end of my career, so it's not a big deal, but I mean, that's a bit of a cop-out.
Okay, but let's deal with your first point right off the top. This is the first exam other than the registered clinical social worker, and those people have made the choice without any exam to not call themselves social workers. Right? You know, our registration fees, and people complain how it costs so much. It's $255 a year. Go talk to a nurse. Go talk to a psychologist. You know, that's less than a cup of coffee a day.
Yeah, it's not, I mean, I've been registered for years, so, and I've always been proud of being a social worker, but listening to this, I'm going to that place of, oh, you know, like, I wouldn't want to write the exam and have my stuff in the States. I just wouldn't, you know, I'd opt out. So when I'm thinking there's going to be many students and future social workers who are going to say, I don't want to go there. And I'm not saying we shouldn't have standards. I think we do need standards, but you know, there's got to be other options. It shouldn't be one or the other. There's got to be choice. That's what we're about, is for people to have choice.
Well, that's linking with my question that has not been addressed yet, was when this process was being looked at to become implemented in the future and ended up with an exam, what did that look like? Like, was there a discussion about, well, what if we centered examinations and regulation around schools where graduates are coming from, so that there's options in exams? Is it going to be oral? Is it going to be written? The content that we have learned is being examined by the people that have taught us in that direct program for social work. I mean, were those kinds of things discussed, where it was looked more individual? Because I agree with Jackie, what's practiced up north in BC is very different from what's practiced down here. And the statement you made about first day of job, working in a hospital, interviewing a family, well, from my perspective, I will bring my social justice, social worker mind into that, and my anti-oppressive. That's going to be with me, because that's part of who I am in my job as well. I don't always separate those two.
And you shouldn't.
And I shouldn't, but I just feel like this exam and the way that the process is working is it's kind of asking me to do that, especially from this minimal standard place. I don't know. I don't know if I'm sold on it yet either, but that's just how I'm feeling.
Yes, yeah. And I respect that.
Okay, how about we go here, 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 and that's, you had one? You had it?
Thanks, John. So I think I'm interpreting this in a slightly different way. As a student going forward, what this exam means to me, what you suggested was that this exam is fundamentally designed to test the minimum standards for public safety. With that in mind, I can maintain my critical, often radical, anti-oppressive stance. There's space for me to be me in this exam, and there's space, at the same time, there's space for another who might maintain more of a clinical stance. We can both write the same exam and presumably both have a fighting chance of passing it.
Yes.
Because we're addressing the minimum competency standards.
That's the idea. Yes, yes.
So it's regardless.
It's not meant to minimize social work. It's not meant to drive out, you know, social justice. That's, you know, the exam is built by social workers. So it's you know, no matter how big and awful it looks, it comes from within. So yes, you know, it's, and you know, why minimum standards? And this debate goes on in all the professions. Because if we set them higher than that, they're barriers to entry. Then you start to actually increase costs because the market size is lower because you're keeping people out. And of course, that ignores the cost both to individuals and society from undertaking education. The idea here is not to have anybody be unsuccessful, but there's that you know, how do we ensure public protection? And you know, people have also challenged that. Well, you know, what's wrong with the system now? There is no exam now. Why don't you just accept what the schools do? And I don't have a good question. I don't have a good answer to that because it's, you know, the board from a number of years ago that said we're going to put an exam in place. Oh, okay. I don't think that really answers your question.
No, it doesn't, and I totally understand your statement. I guess I'm not speaking very clearly or trying to get across what I'm trying to get across.
And there may not be answers which either satisfy you or are very good
and
at this
I'm
point.
sure that is probably true on some levels. I just wanted to know a little bit more about the process. Like, was there, because this is a very creative field in my mind as well. And so I was just wondering what that process did look like. It was, you know, okay, well, we're going to do an exam. Okay, sure, but what were there discussions about what that was going to look like, or the possibility of it being individualized for programs? I mean, was there a discussion about that at all?
I wasn't around, so I can't say for sure yes. But yes, there were discussions. There is
So like, how can we access that?
a broad look at how social work education is delivered and assessed in Canada. There's, again, from my understanding, I don't have any direct evidence. There's a broad number of programs that have no evaluation of what social work students do in their programs. There are, you know, multiple types of assessment levels, which generally means everybody makes it through.
But that's an accreditation issue, isn't it? Not all schools of social work are accredited. Isn't that true? I know VIU.
No,
No? All of them have to be
all of
accredited.
them have to be accredited.
There is one
So-
in Manitoba,
Okay.
which is not. You know, in BC now, I think we have 12 social work programs that are running between bachelor's and master's programs. I think we have more than Ontario does. UNBC, I think, has just launched their 5th site. Well, where's everybody going? I don't know. You know, but again, our role is not to stop or prevent that, nor is it to change the focus on any kind of program. So if a particular program wants to teach anti-oppressive theory and do nothing clinical, that's fine.
That's us.
So you don't teach any like assessment?
We have some
interviewing?
legal skills, but we don't say that we're clinical social work. We do have some practice courses
There was
that
a statement on the
reflect that.
MSW website about
Yeah,
that,
we're not.
clearly.
Yeah,
It says.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I wanted to say that though, I went to the presentation. Now I don't know the fellow from Iowa.
Yeah, Dwight.
His presentation, and it was very thorough on how they created the exam. So I don't know if they have that presentation on their website, but he does talk about, and I asked the same questions that you did because I wasn't convinced. I don't know if I still am, but from what I remember from his presentation, they sent a survey out to practicing social workers from all over Canada and the United States, and so all of these social workers are the ones who submitted their recommendations of what are key aspects of social work practice that are relevant to our profession. So all of the questions come from them, and they create it. And it was a very rigorous process in how they vet the questions and how from how they take it and practicing it, testing it, what really works. And if there's people constantly failing on one question, then there's something wrong with the question, not with the person. That was what I understood from that presentation.
Yes.
But I would suggest looking at that website, because I don't know if they have that information on there, but that's where all of the information came from. There's also a lot of discussions around the differences between the U.S. and Canada. And I understood that 40% of the people involved are from Canada on there. Does that give us, information to say, well, in British Columbia, I don't know, and I don't think so. But basically, it's general social work practice at the end of the day. But we had a few questions.
Oh, I have a question, I just have a comment. So I've been practicing social work in Victoria for almost 20 years, graduated from this university. And I think that this process, even though it feels kind of icky for some people, it legitimizes us as professionals. Because seriously, I know that you're alone in the school, but we are a dying breed. In our own office, within the last year, they eliminated 3 social work positions like that. They were filled with nurses. It was a very sad day. We need to do this. We need to stand up and say, we're professionals, we have standards, we are regulatory, because otherwise the group's going to get kind of quietly shuffled out of the door. That's just
Did you have? No? Okay.
Yeah, I was just going to ask about, so the folks who, where this test kind of came from, would they all have been registered social
Yes.
workers?
Yeah. And that was one of the criticisms of the survey. But we have no way of contacting people that aren't registered. And I think, some of the schools had said, oh, well, we would have sent it out for you.
Well, and I know, in doing that, it automatically excludes folks who, don't necessarily require regulation, like the ministry, or,
Yes.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Although there's a significant number within the ministry that voluntarily register.
Okay.
And because it's Canada-wide, like in Alberta, social workers and child protection have to be registered. In Ontario, most of them are registered, but some of them are under the child, sorry, I'm not going to remember what it's called. There's a certain agency that deals with children in care in Ontario, but they don't hire social workers. But it's, we're kind of at a tipping point where we're seeing, social work, marginalized, reduced. Anybody that listened to Rick Clough on the CBC yesterday when he was interviewing the chief of police from Delta said, well, you guys are really the front line of social work. Well, no, I'm sorry. Police officers are not the front line of social work. Thanks. And for, with all due respect, a nurse or an OT to think they can do social work, no, they can't. It is in the public interest to have social workers doing social work. End of story, okay? But we're also, against big systems. A previous president of HSA, one of the largest unions representing social work, is a social worker. You know what he did for your profession? Nothing. Because he said, it would be a conflict of interest for me to promote my own profession within the union. Oh my gosh, yeah. How about just treating them fairly? Because by doing nothing, social work fell by the wayside. Is this the answer? I don't know. What I do know is, every other profession follows this model, okay? There's no other profession in Canada, in the US, that simply licenses people straight out of school. Accreditation standards have a different purpose than regulation and examination. The accreditation document actually says they are looking for educational excellence, which is good. We're not looking for excellence, we're just looking for minimum standards. And you know, again, when you talk to, you know, doctors, nurses, dentists, they hate that because they want higher than standards. That's why we have our continuing professional development, which is meant to take people from, you know, entry to practice and build over your professional life cycle.
I have one, I just have one, oh, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, we'll come back to that quickly, yeah.
I really pursued this at the Canadian Association of Social Work Educators, just out of interest,
Yes.
in May. And eventually I was handed a sample examination book for the exam.
Yep.
Now, it's not going to be the same thing as what is going to be on the exam, but I mean, it was a magnificent document that would allow me to say is, when I take a look at that, am I prepared to go and write the exam? And if I've got a gap, because all I've done, like in my master's degree, I specialized in policy development at McGill. I didn't do any clinical practice. Then I knew that I would have to go and have some skills in the area where I knew how to do an assessment and whatever. It could be an assessment of a family or an individual, or it could be an assessment of what's going on in my group that I'm working with, or in that policy level of how am I getting information, how am I doing a critical analysis of that information. And I'm fairly comfortable, as someone who tends to be pretty critical, that that they were going to give you what you need in order to prepare for it if you got some questions. You don't have to just go into it blind.
No, please don't. Going in blind is,
No,
no,
I mean,
no.
I'm going to break, and I worked as a social worker in legal aid for 20 years, and with lawyers who had to pass their bar exams. And what was on that bar exam at times was different than what they were learning in school, because they had to show that they were applying it in a certain kind of way. So, but I think everybody's job is to demystify it and to give you what you need in order to go in to be really well prepared to do the exam, rather than saying, oh, just go in there blind with no expectations and no idea of what you're going to, either what the structure of the exam is going to be and also what the content's going to be. I do love the question about the stuff coming, is our stuff going to the States?
Yeah.
And is it for a role for the college or the Canadian associations to be able to say, we want this data kept in Canada?
Yeah.
Bring the examiner, yeah.
There's a big difference between like the palm scan and sort of linking that to an individual. And you know, we would need to do some checking on that. Everybody's aware of, you know, the Canadian laws requiring data be stored in Canada, the US Patriot Act. And I can't say with 100%, oh no, it's stored here or stored there. We're not quite there yet, like just in the process. But that's certainly a question that we'll have to look at and see, you know, because as more provinces come online, that will become a more and more critical question. So let's deal with it right up front. Right.
We have Michelle and then Barb.
Just wondered what the professional development requirements were once people are registered.
40 hours a year. We do give you 6 hours for doing the program, which effectively drops it to 34. It's reported online, and it's really, really broad.
4 hours for doing what purpose?
6 hours for actually doing the continuing professional. We can consider undertaking professional development within the hours. So the program's set up so you've got to think about your practice.
So it's actually 36.
Yes, 34 actually.
34, yeah, I can't subtract.
Yes.
Yes, I didn't understand, like
Yeah.
what, 6 hours where you spend
Yeah.
thinking about
Okay.
how you're gonna do it?
Yeah.
did too.
Yeah.
The process of doing it is supposed to help you develop your professional
Yes.
self. That's the idea.
So
Gotcha.
you're going to reflect on your practice
Gotcha,
and,
okay.
and determine the kinds of activities that are going to improve your practice or
Practice
the
framework.
areas that you might want to undertake,
Right,
right?
I get it,
So
okay.
you're gonna do a learning plan. And then from there, you're gonna get some goals,
Yeah.
and then you're gonna do activities.
And then how do you show that you've done those?
You just enter it
You
on
just
our,
say it.
the online portal.
Yeah, it's
They-
a trust.
It's a trust.
So it's less of a concrete process than, so keeping up with your professional knowledge and standards is, you know, it seems a little less stringent than our
Exam.
exam process. That's quite interesting to me.
What we're finding is that 99% of social workers by far exceed the requirements for professional development. They
I'm sure
have,
that's true.
they have mentoring, they have supervision, they have the courses, and all we're really asking you to do is report it, just like every other profession does, because that's one of the things in the health authorities where they said, we're giving this to a nurse because they have continuing professional development.
Yeah.
We have one question,
Yes?
Barb?
I maybe I'm gapped out, which is possible, but I don't kind of understand why we
Mhm.
don't know more about the records and the palm print, and you said we're not there yet. Well, why has that question been asked?
BC is going to be the first one that actually implements the exam on a broad base in Canada. A number of years ago, when all of the regulators met, that was the decision that was made. The organization that provides the exam and Pearson VUE, Pearson VUE just came on about a year and a half ago as the exam provider. So as we're moving through not only the consultation with schools, discussions with national organizations, there's all these real operational bits that are starting to come up, including things like what happens with the palm print.
I think it's more ethical than just operational, and I think from this discussion, there's a big concern being registered about that. And so you carry that forward then?
Oh, yes, yeah.
Okay, so we don't need to do anything by writing that down or?
Oh, you can certainly write and express that, and, we'll certainly, I have a board meeting on tomorrow, where's the week on? And I'll, take all of this back, for the, board and the registration committee, because registration is ultimately responsible for the exam, to think about.
I would just add, at the school level, our practicum program, all the practicum work we do, we have a program that we ensure that everything is kept in Canada, even though it's an American company that runs the program. It was a very straightforward thing to arrange. And that's just basically practicum supervisor names and agency names and student names, but, it's all.
It's information.
Yes.
Pretty straightforward.
Yeah. And I don't expect it's going to be a huge hurdle, especially because the nurses, registered nurses, have just stopped using the Canadian exam and have adopted the National State Board of Nursing exam in the States. So they will have exactly the same dynamics. They have the same law, the same, opposition to the Patriot Act. So as Pearson VUE starts delivering their exam, all of that's going to be dealt with.
Well, let's not let the nurses wag the.
Sorry?
Let's us state what we think.
Yeah, but
without-
their exam takes effect in January, like in a couple of months. Mine's still a year off.
So have the clinical social workers raised this? Because the clinical social workers have done the American exam for years, haven't they?
Yeah, but they have.
Yeah.
And I have heard it discussed privately, like in a group, but I don't know if it's come through to
No.
the college.
Thanks. No, not in any concrete way. What was expressed was some real anxiety not having watched the video that introduces the exam center. So one of our clinical people just showed up to do the exam and had to produce 2 pieces of ID, had to have a picture taken, had to have the palm scan. All the centers, no matter where you write, are exactly the same. Colors are the same. Plants are exactly the same. Everything is the same.
So much for diversity.
There's no such thing. It's right, but it's, there's research that shows that differences in exam centers result in different scores on exams. Different colors on the walls, like the poor people that study this stuff.
But they love it.
Psychometricians?
Yeah.
Psychometricians are the most
They're
fascinating.
Make a lot of money.
amazing, yeah.
Give them a couple of drinks and get them going? Oh,
Yeah.
man. So I will take it back to the board, and again, the board is, for the most part, social workers, and they will also share the concern around, palm prints and being stored in the States. And
I guess I was kind of put off when you called it operational, if it's just kind of dismissive.
No, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to dismiss it at all. They're, real concerns, and in fact, real concerns because the law says it has to be stored in Canada. But in the whole hierarchy of where the discussion is, we just haven't hit that kind of, oh, by the way. We're getting very close.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Marion?
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, Jamie and I have a logistical question because students are always asking for those letters of degree completion and
Yes.
wanting it to get to work. So,
Yeah.
I mean, just for that one term though, where's that September 1st deadline happens,
Yeah.
like next summer,
Yeah.
when people will finish their degree and their requirements on August, whatever, the marks will go in, it'll take forever to grind them through the system, and undergraduate records is not gonna be able to grind out
Mhm.
30 letters for a bunch of people
Yes.
that need it by the exact date of September 1st.
Yes.
I'm wondering is there some room so that they could put the application in, but knowing that the letter will follow, but it might not arrive on someone's desk on September 1st, because I don't really know how we're gonna
Well,
make that
it's
work.
got to be before September 1st. Okay.
So anybody graduating the summer session or from
Basically,
summer session would be.
Well, no. I would think I had died and gone to heaven if I was to get an Excel sheet from a school with names on it that said these people have successfully completed their program.
But their grades would not yet have been registered.
Yeah, but
You don't care about that.
But there's a difference between grades and successfully completing a program.
Okay, so we'd be vouching,
We-
yeah.
We would have a huge problem if a school said, oh, this person successfully completed, and then they didn't, right? Then they.
We'd never do that.
No. Okay. So if you can be really sure that, when you say this person's completed, they've completed, awesome. They still have to give me a transcript when it eventually comes out.
Okay, that's good, Marion.
But the idea isn't that we're going to say, oh no, you can't, and this was the issue for the nurses, you can't write the exam until you convocate. Because,
For these people, it's not about, these are the people that won't wanna write the exam at all.
yes,
So like they're trying to graduate before
Yes.
they have to write the exam.
Yeah,
yeah.
So it's those people.
Yeah.
so if they indicate such and we send the names to you from
Yeah.
our illustrious director's office.
yeah,
Like I'll have a grad list at that
yes,
point.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so,
Send those names to
But I
him.
guess, I'm just thinking, will all the grades be sitting on there?
because
It doesn't matter, it's not,
I don't necessarily need.
we'll
grades.
know who finishes, like you're finishing,
I'll
right?
be
So
finishing,
we'll
yeah.
know that she's gonna finish, and we could put her name on there and then send it off
Yes,
to the
But
college.
don't I
Yeah.
have to know from the prof that the person's actually finished?
then we can discuss that.
Yes.
Yeah,
Maybe directly from the
yeah.
prof.
and internally, you can look at that and say.
We can figure out a
right,
Yeah.
As long as it's not like the letter from undergraduate records you want,
No.
because that.
That's what I
will be
thought
on September,
earlier
whatever.
too.
You can get that after September.
Letter of completion, and I would love to dispense with the individual letters. And, if we can sort of make it so that we just like get a spreadsheet that says, these
Is
people,
there a grad list for?
Yeah,
or
No,
these
we
people.
wouldn't have been able to do that without their permission.
Well, yeah, so these people have authorized us to release their names
Yes.
as having completed
Okay.
the program, because it saves, everybody time.
20
producing
letters, yeah.
Individual letters. Okay, so the let me be really clear, okay? So the exam comes into effect September 1st. If we get an application August 30th, it's not going to be approved by the 1st. So if you're thinking of applying, apply early. You can get your application. Well, you know, you can do it in June, you can do it in July. Just don't wait until, you know, August 28th. There's an exam form, there's reference letters, there's criminal record checks. There's a bunch of stuff that has to happen. Just because you phone and say, I want to be registered, doesn't mean it's going to happen.
So like they need to be thinking about this in June.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we could send that out to our grad list
Yes.
and say,
Yeah.
looks like you're graduating, if you're planning on registering and not wanting to write the exam,
Yes.
do it what you need to
Yes.
do before.
Thanks, Barb.
And of course, they can voluntarily write the exam if they wish to.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Opportunity.
We have one more question.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm feeling on board with this jumping through this hoop so that we can have more power and like, you know, push back against government for caseloads. This sounds good to me, it sounds annoying, but like necessary. And I saw the nurses doing it recently and they have this sense of pride. They're like, I'm a nurse now. And like, that's cool. So my thing is like, is it online, the study materials? The nurses were buying expensive books that like help them study for the test. What does that look like? How do we get this? Because we need to, it sounds like to jump through this hoop, we need to learn the words to answer so that we can get through the hoop, then we can go practice antidepressively later. But like, where do I get the book that tells me what to memorize to write the test?
And memorizing won't help you.
Okay,
Okay,
but
'cause-
there's ways that they ask questions, like for the
Yes.
nurses exam, they're like, oh, I see, they're doing this again. There's like certain types they really needed to study,
Yes.
like how they like to ask them.
Totally different.
You need to read the question and you need to read the answers. Having regulated social workers for like, you know, 3 years,
Yeah.
boy, there's a whole bunch of them that can't read. That's like, anyhow, so there's a study guides online.
With like practice tests from previous
Yes,
years?
yeah,
Okay. And they're
practice
free?
tests from.
Are they free?
No, I don't
Okay.
believe that they are,
Okay.
but your school can buy like a 6-month license.
Come on, Jackie.
Uh,
Okay.
Okay, and you know, if it's a real issue for the school, and the school was to contact the college and say, you know, look, like we didn't budget for this year, I'm sure we could probably work something out so that, you know, because again, our reason for doing this isn't to prevent you from coming in. I would love to have a 100% success rate. That would be awesome. I don't know that that's going to happen. You know, so yeah, there's
Thank you.
books. Be careful going to, thanks, private groups. Just do your homework, do your research. If they are sharing stolen questions and ASWB finds out about it, then there's a problem. You know, so if somebody says, oh, you know, hey, I've, you know, got these books I'll share with you, they don't really have anything other than like the old study guides that you can buy. Nothing current is available. It's all electronic. It is so locked down. Like, I don't even get to see the questions. Not that I would know what to do with them, but